Hi, welcome to Hunting Illinois podcast. With us today, we have Dan, Curtis, and Lauren. So we're the Illinois Learn to Hunt team. We're going to be talking today about just how our season's been going. We've been doing a lot of mentored hunts, and we've all been getting out, and we've all, even though we've been hunting for years, we're still learning some new things. I know I've made some mistakes already this year that I haven't ever before, so I'll tell you all about that. But before we get going on that and kind of the season updates, we have some outdoor news and some season reminders. So, Dan, you want to take away for outdoor news?
Yeah, so just kind of want to pass along a couple interesting opportunities for mentor deer hunting that are upcoming in Illinois. So IDNR announced a few different mentored hunts. One will be at Kickapoo State Recreation Area, and the hunt is scheduled between December 16th and January 3rd. And you currently have until the end of November 29th to apply. So if you check our Facebook page, or we'll also put links down in the description and the show notes, depending where you're listening to this, you can find direct links to those press releases that then have links to that application page. So again, these are mentored deer hunting opportunities. And what's really unique about these opportunities, especially the Kickapoo, I think the Kickapoo hunt is on its fourth or fifth year.
Yeah,
probably close
fourth.
To that. And I've been on several of those hunts with participants in the past and have had a lot of success. So these are areas that typically don't have hunting. So like the Kickapoo example, you're hunting a lot of the campground. So the campground is typically closed to any hunting pressure. But the biologists and land managers started to notice, hey, there's overabundant populations of deer in these areas. And so we need to reduce that herd. And so this is a great way to offer additional opportunities without taking away, opportunities from current hunters. So these are really unique. You're going to get a lot of experience. And the way they've kind of designed this is it's very tailored for the new hunter. And so there is a requirement that you can only have 3 years of deer hunting experience to apply. And so the way they're going to look is they'll go into your system and look at how many years you've actually purchased deer tags. So that's kind of the caveat there. But the nice thing is this is both for adults and youth, and they do allocate the same number of spots for youth as they do adults. So again, check out these opportunities. So again, it's at Kickapoo State Recreation Area as well as Fox Ridge. So check the links down below, and you'll have links directly to those press releases for more information and for a link to apply. Highly, highly recommend.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great program. It's my favorite thing that we've been a part of so far. I mean, I think it creates access. It does exactly what our program wants to do, right? It creates access. New hunters get to do it. And if it's successful, we can move to other spots. So they're opening up Fox Ridge for the first time this year. So hopefully we see that continue to grow. Land's expensive in this state, and I don't know if DNR is ever going to get more of it. If they do, that's awesome. But if they don't, we got to use what we already have. So they're looking at the resources that they have already in these campgrounds that are not pressured, and we can get people in there and help manage. And everybody always talks about, why don't they get hunters to do it? Well, here's a program that they're actually getting hunters to do the management for them.
Absolutely.
So we need people to apply for these and show that
there's interest.
In it, and then we can continue moving in it across the state. Hopefully, there's a lot of different campgrounds with a lot of deer in them that need to be cleared out. Honestly, you go over to Kickapoo. I mean, it's like squirrels. I mean, you pull in there. There's I remember we went over there to film a video one time in the summertime, and we pulled in. There was a group of 4 does here, a group of 5 does there. You have a video of about, literally 30 deer.
We'll even play it in this vodka.
Yeah. There's literally 30 does in a field.
And I'm waiting from a mentee. I'm like, hey, that one right there. Take that one. Take that one.
Yeah.
And literally 20 or 30 does in front of us. So you're going to have opportunity. And the nice thing is this program was designed, especially the Kickapoo, to be a pilot. So to go through this process, because there will be pre-set up blinds. So all you literally have to do, if you're selected on one of these hunts, show up with a mentor. Bring your equipment, but there's already a spot, there's already a blind. The biologists and land managers for those sites have put these blinds in areas where deer are going to frequently walk right in front of it. So it's a great opportunity to, again, get interest. And now that the Kickapoo hunt has shown successful, we should start seeing more and more expansion year over year. So this year, adding Fox Ridge, and hopefully each subsequent year adding 1 or 2 more sites until we really grow this thing into a statewide opportunity. But again, links down below. Check it out, get an application in, and hope you're successful in drawing a spot, because it's a really good opportunity.
last thing to say on that is if you need a mentor for this application, check out our Facebook page and especially our Illinois Learn to Hunt Connections page. We have a lot of people on there who are past participants. Either one of us, if we're available, will come and help you out. But if not, you can reach out on there. Some folks have done that already this year, being like, I'm interested in applying for this, but I don't have anyone to go with me. So reach out on there and we'll have some people reach out to you and see if they can go with you if they're available. So
I like it. And again, we're happy to take you if it fits within our schedule and our availability. But the way this hunt is operated, if you're successful, you will be awarded a 5-day block of time that you're allowed to hunt that site. And so again, if you do get selected, reach out to us as quick as possible to let us know and ask. And then we can start working to see if either we can help or we can try to connect you with a mentor either through the connection page or through some of our other channels. But definitely look into those opportunities. Another kind of important application, obviously, to talk about, that we're in the middle of rut. It's November. Deer is on the mind, but don't forget spring turkey. So that first application period ends December 1st. So that's coming up pretty quickly. So if you haven't submitted your first lottery application for a spring turkey permit, make sure to get that in. Again, links down in the show notes below.
Yep, I just did that yesterday.
Did you? I still need to do mine.
But yeah, it's at Explore More Illinois.
Yep, so exploremoreil.com.
Yeah, so Explore More IL. Yeah, IL. So the link will be below. But yeah, so they have a couple applications throughout the DNR website, depending on which one you're looking at. This one is through that general data, the database they use to apply for your regular base license.
Yeah. And I did see, I went through a couple weeks ago and was looking at the Public Lands Hunting Report, and they finally published the new one. So if you're still looking at different sites and trying to look at overall, how many hunters are out there? How many spring turkey did they harvest last year? That new report is out, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes too.
Key thing to remember when applying for spring turkey tags is if you're interested in doing public land, to apply for the name of the public land that you're applying for, they have the counties and the public land in the same drop-down menu. So make sure you don't click on a county by accident, because that's going to be for a private land tag or for a public site that accepts the county level tag. A lot of those sites are going to be in the south and the southeast. But
if you're curious how to find out if a site requires a site specific permit or if it requires a county level, if you go in the back of the digest, there's this huge table that probably looks a little cumbersome at first, but spend some time in there and start looking at the different columns and what the different kind of symbols mean. And so you'll see a bunch of sites that are listed for spring turkey. You'll see C, which means a county level tag can hunt that specific site, or if it's an S, it means it requires that site specific. So check out those tables in the back, and that'll tell you exactly what you need for an individual site.
And if the one I use all the time, because it's happened in the past, we've gotten contacted about it before, it's one near us in central Illinois would be Weldon Springs Piatt County Unit, and then also Piatt County. So be aware of the name of the site you're looking for. If you have any questions, contact that site. Or just double check that list to make sure there's not duplicates of similar named things. So just be aware.
I like it. And sticking with turkey, kind of one more news item here. Fall firearm turkey harvest, those numbers were released. So this year, turkey hunters in Illinois during the fall shotgun season harvested 292 birds, which is up about 10% from the previous year. And what's interesting is we didn't see a lot more permit sales. So permit sales were 1,756. Compared to 1771 last year. So those are pretty much neck and neck, but again, saw a 10% increase in that fall shotgun harvest. So cool stuff.
Mm-hmm. Has anyone seen any turkeys out bow hunting? Not to get off topic, but I haven't seen any.
We had a few sneak behind us. Well, I'm like 99% sure they were turkeys because they were just kind of hopping on a ridge behind us, and it sounded probably 4 or 5 of them, but I haven't got my eyes on any yet.
We heard gobbling at Clinton.
We did hear gobbling when we were out turkey hunting.
No, when we were out waterfowl
hunting. Oh, waterfowl. It's been a busy,
Yeah, dude, you've done a lot of hunts lately. Dan's been busy. But yeah, we're doing a mentored waterfowl hunt, which we'll kind of talk about. But as we're sitting in the waterfowl blind, we heard turkeys gobbling across the lake. So
that just lets you know what the time of, or what the weather is doing this year. Because it was probably 50s, 60s that day. It was warm.
Yeah,
it was pretty warm, and that turkey was out there gobbling. He was a little confused.
Yeah, I've seen several, but they've been on private land, so.
Yeah.
But still, nice to see them. Nice to know they're around.
Yeah, you got a good turkey archery spot. Hopefully you guys can connect on that sometime.
Yeah, and again, that's probably worth mentioning, worth reminding. If you're out archery hunting, you can still have a turkey permit in your pocket. What we were talking about there was just that fall shotgun season. Mm-hmm. The fall archery season is still underway. That kind of runs congruent with that archery deer. But again, make sure you have a turkey tag in your pocket.
And it's pretty cheap. And I mean,
it's worth it, yeah.
When my husband was out turkey hunting, he came home with a deer. Usually I think it's the other way around, but
very much so.
We'll take it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But speaking of deer, you ready to talk deer hunting?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the deer firearm season's coming up. So we're going to quickly go to a nice little snippet that Dan Skinner from IDNR put together for us. So we'll play that right now. And that's going to be kind of like a season update. So thanks, Dan, for putting that together. Here it is. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dan, for putting that together. So deer firearm season's going to be this weekend.
I'm excited. I'm ready. The weather, it's been unseasonably warm. It's been a weird year, but it finally looks like we have some really cold weather coming. And just looking at the temp, like today here in central Illinois, it's like 62 degrees already outside. Mm-hmm. And then we're talking, the season starts on Friday. We're looking at a low in the low 30s. We may actually get a frost with highs in the low 40s. So that's going to be a big temp change, and I expect to see quite a bit of activity that day. I'm excited to get out.
Yeah, last I looked up here, they're calling for some snow showers on.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Nothing to stick, but we're approaching cold.
Hey,
the first flurry.
I'll take it. That feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Finally feels normal.
Yeah.
So does anyone have any stories you want to share about them getting out?
Yeah, I had a pretty good hunt. I don't mind talking about first.
For it,
just a couple days ago, I was out with a mentor on a piece of public land here in central Illinois. I think was it Friday? Yes, Friday. So that would have been pretty much peak rut still. I like to think November 10th is like peak, but we're still seeing rutting activity, the next week or two. No big issue there. But we started the morning pretty early, and that's one thing I like to focus on, especially during rut on public land, is getting in there as early as possible, just in case other hunters sneak in. I want to make sure I have the spot I want, that we are already there, we're set up, we're quiet, so that as other hunters start to push in, my area almost already becomes a sanctuary where everything else, there's people moving around, hanging tree stands. I'm nice and quiet, we're set up. So any deer come, they get pushed, immediately come our direction. And it played out that way. We got set up about 45 minutes before legal light, so we had quite a bit of time to sit there in the dark. Took a short little nap, as we normally do. And then about 10 minutes before legal light, we started to hear the of something sneaking to us. And the more you hunt, you'll really start to be able to, at least I feel like I can, start to pick up just the way an animal walks, whether it's a buck or a doe. Now, it's a little harder if it's a young buck and just a doe. Young bucks kind of act like does, but a big, mature buck has a very distinct way of walking. They're very slow. They'll take 2 steps, and they may stop for minutes. Where a doe, it's normally just this, just very consistent. They may take a few breaks, mill around, but a buck is very almost specific with every foot. And so I started to kind of pick up. I was like, this sounds like a buck, just kind of sneaking through. And again, it's pitch black. The moon was not up this night, so we couldn't see anything. And within like 10 minutes of legal light, this thing gets within 10, 12 yards. And we can see a silhouette, and we can see a little bit of antler reflection. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it's coming from a direction we didn't want them to come. So we knew it was going to wind us. So it was just a matter of time. And we just kind of sat there with it, again, probably at 12 yards, just kind of hanging out there for 60 seconds to a minute. And then we hear this loud stomp. And whenever you hear a loud stomp, you know what comes next. And that deer snorted, took off running. So that was kind of how the morning played out. We didn't have a ton of action, late morning. We had a couple does catch us from, again, they snuck in behind us. The wind was perfect in our face. They were just coming from a direction we didn't anticipate. And so they busted us. And so we went back to the vehicles, had lunch, and my mentee was like, hey, I have a tree stand. Do you mind if I bring it out and you kind of show me how to use it? And I was like, honestly, that's perfect, because where we were sitting, if we had, just 6 or 7 foot of elevation, we'd be able to see out into this entire bottomland in front of us, just the way the landscape laid out. And so I was like, sure, let's bring it. And so we started heading back at probably 11:45, and we get back into the woods and hit our spot at about 12:15. And we're not quiet. We're just sitting there talking. I'm going through how to safely use this, how to, the harness, the climbing process with a climber, going through all that. And again, we hear a dreaded stomp from behind us. And again, it's probably 12:30 at this point, midday. If you've heard our podcast before on rut, you've probably heard how much I love the midday activity, especially on public land. It seems to be incredible with bucks. And I'll throw it over to you, Curtis, because I think you found or had a kind of a realization of kind of why that happens, that midday activity. You want to talk about that a little bit, and then I'll kind of jump right back into my story.
Well, yeah, I just heard somebody else talking about this, and it kind of made sense. But we always thought about it as a pressure standpoint, and that probably does play into it a little bit. But maybe even more of a driving factor of that is the buck knows that the does are bedded down at that point in time. So think about it. The buck's wanting to scent check as many does as possible. If he goes out at 7:30 a.m., 8 o'clock, who knows where they are?
They're everywhere. Yeah.
Anywhere. And so he's got a lot of work to chase all them down, scent check everybody to see who's getting close. But he knows, hey, if I wait till midday, I know exactly where they're going to be. It's a nice warm day. They're going to be bedded in the shade over here. I can just walk by downwind, scent check them all at once. They're not moving around. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. So I never thought about it from that standpoint, but it really does make a lot of sense. And that's why so many nice bucks are shot in that like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. window. That's the middle part of the day when you know the does are sedentary probably. So, yeah, makes sense, right?
I think that's pretty spot on. Yeah. But yeah, so we were getting set up, and again, we hear that stomp. And where we were set up, we have kind of a slight ridge behind us that then drops off into a creek bottom. And so we can't really see the creek bottom from where we're at just because there's just a slight inclination that doesn't allow us to see down there, which is why I thought, bringing that stand will allow you to get up over that and be able to look all the way down. And so we hear that stomp, and I look at her, and I'm like, that sounded like a deer stomp to me. Mm-hmm. And so I get on my hands and knees and start kind of army crawling up to that little ridge to look down into the creek bottom. And there's 3 mature bucks just all standing there. And I instantly hit the ground and kind of basically motioned to her, hey, there's 3 deer right here. And at this point, they're already within 50 yards. Like, they are right there. And so she finally starts getting settled, and they kind of work off, and then they just kind of slowly disappear into the woods on the other side of the creek. And we're sitting there for, I don't know, probably 30 minutes or so, and I just hear her. I'm sitting basically underneath her.
I was going to ask you, like,
she's up in the tree,
yeah.
And I'm directly at kind of the base of the tree, and I just hear pss, pss, pss. And I look up, and she goes over there. And then she gives me the symbol that there's 3 of them. Like, okay, we're back in business.
Wow.
They're just hanging out in that bottom. And we probably had them in front of us at this point from probably 1 until about 2. So they were just in that bottom, just milling around, getting drink from the creek a little bit, doing some rubbing on some trees. I got some video that will kind of overlay, rubbing on some trees, working some scrapes. And I thought about calling at this moment, but I was like, it's a little, I don't want to booger them out yet. We've still got like 4 hours of daylight here yet. Let's just see how they obviously want to be in this area. So let's see how this plays out. Yeah. And so we just kind of sit there and hunker down. And again, I can't see these deer. She's got a perfect view of them. She's watched. She's having the time of her life. I'm just sitting up there like, okay. Just kind of, keep me informed if they do anything different. And so again, they work off into that woods on the other side of the creek, and they kind of disappear for a little bit. So I get a text from her that, I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, that makes, I need to do the same. And so she lowered her bow down. I took a little bit of a walk, probably 10 yards away, went to the bathroom myself. Mm-hmm. And literally the second I finished, here comes a spike running directly at me. And again, my hunter, her bow was on the ground, not with her because she was going to the bathroom too. So we were not prepared at that moment to shoot. But again, it's 2:30 and you got to go to the bathroom when you got to go to the bathroom. But this deer came all the way into, 15 or 16 yards, perfectly broadside. I've got good video. We'll play over this. But the thing just worked right down the exactly like we wanted. This is exactly the route that I expected all the deer to come when we set up in the spot. Came perfectly down the ridge, just cut right across in front of us, and was going to go drop down to that creek bottom. So that played out. That deer ended up coming into, again, 15, 16 yards, busted out. It finally caught our wind. And I think as she was pulling, she noticed the deer was there. So she's slowly pulling her bow up. I think he probably caught some of that motion or sound and took off. So at this point, it's probably 2:30, 3 o'clock. We get kind of settled back in, and I hear the pss, 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 antlers again. And so I start again, at this point, it's getting close. It's 3:30, 4 o'clock. We have about an hour or so left of daylight. I'm like, if we're going to try something, we need to try something. So I sneak back up to that ridge, and I'm sitting here watching all these deer. And two of the again, they were still mature bucks, but two of the smaller bucks kind of worked off. And then this big one I see just back there working a tree. And so I start grunting at him and grunt and grunt. And it took him a while to hear my grunt. The first couple I did, he was, again, working a tree with his antlers, so he probably couldn't hear or wasn't paying attention. He didn't give it any. So I did one really loud grunt. It didn't sound great, but I just wanted to get his attention. And instantly, his head looked, and then I started doing my normal soft grunts, just burr, burr, very soft. I even stomped the ground a little bit just to try to make it a little more realistic. And here he comes on a string. And so he was probably at 150, 175 yards when I started calling. And he came all the way into about 50 yards. Just right we needed just a little bit more. But he gave us a perfect show at 50 yards. Big mature buck, perfectly broadside. We've got some great video of him walking. It was just an awesome hunt.
You guys are some big bucks.
It was a fun day. Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is all on public land. Mm-hmm. And so I just really want to emphasize public land gets a bad rap from a lot of people. You know, we've talked to hunters who, when they didn't have private land, like they didn't even think about hunting. They didn't even think about public land. It just doesn't even occur. You see all this stuff. Oh, it's unsafe. You're never going to see any deer out there. Mm-hmm. There are deer out there, and there are big deer out there, and there's a lot of deer out there. Sometimes you just got to put in a little effort, a little work to try to understand what those deer are doing on that property. But yeah, that was one of the best rut hunts I've had where we didn't pull a trigger. I mean, we were covered up in deer all day. They were moving, and how that night ended up playing out is that buck ended up bedding down on us. So he came down to the creek, got within about 50 yards, started kind of working his way back. I gave one more grunt just to see, got him to stop a little bit, looked for probably 30 seconds to a minute, and then he just kind of worked back off into the woods. So I'm sitting there like, man, what is in there? There's something in there that's bringing all these bucks around, right? Mm-hmm. And so he beds down, and he's bedded at probably 130, 140 yards from us, and he beds basically till dark. But within 5 or 10 minutes of legal light, I see a doe stand up, probably 10 or 15 feet from him. So that whole time, I think he had a doe bedded in there. He was tending her. Those other bucks were probably smelling her in estrus, smelling her in heat, coming to investigate. Because at one point, Dakota, the hunter, texted me. She's like, I think 2 bucks are about to square off. It looked like they were kind of, starting to posture a little bit. Dude, she saw everything. Dang. They never ended up fighting, but they did that circle and dance where they kind of face each other. Yeah. So I think this whole time that doe was bedded in there. And the biggest mature one was in there tending her, and these other bucks just probably caught a scent of her and were coming down to see, if what was going on. But it was awesome. Dude.
I was looking into that stomping. I never really understood. I mean, I always thought it was like an alert type of thing. Like they make a noise. Like
I think does do. Yeah.
But I was our last podcast, we talked to the dog tracker and the deer tracker with the dog. But he was talking about that interdigital gland. Mm-hmm. And I looked it up, and he was saying that the dog is actually tracking the scent of that, but also like a shot deer is releasing a different smell, that's
not surprising, a different hormone.
And then through me looking at that, a distress. Yeah, they are actually doing that when they stomp. They're using that digital gland to put down a scent of alertness, and like it's really weird. But weird. So they're like almost like marking like being scared or something.
That's interesting.
So it's a combination of, I'm sure it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing. But when they're doing
it's just an innate behavior.
They're putting down a smell of alert, of distress.
That's interesting. I mean, I buy that.
Something else to help bust you. So not just the noise, but also the freaking marking it with scent that's going to scare the deer off too.
Little graffiti tag.
Yeah.
This way.
But that's that's a good mentor hunt, man.
It was
on that spot.
It was awesome. And again, this was a hunt that I gave away at hunt camp. So if you're interested in partaking in a mentor hunt like this, I'm going to offer the exact same hunt next year. I called it basically a Central Illinois rut hunt, and we'll do the same thing. I can't obviously guarantee a harvest, but I'll do my best to put you into a hunt that's fun, enjoyable, and that you'll get to see stuff that you've never seen.
Yeah, when you sent me the video, I think I wrote back, Dan, I need a mentor.
It was a blast. It was a fun day. Learned a lot. I think she learned a lot. It was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said it sounded like she's pretty fired up and just like
had
a good time. So that's good.
That's awesome. Anyone else have any other stories they want to share? I know you guys have been getting out.
Not for deer, not really.
I'll say, I haven't done any deer.
You guys haven't done anything with deer. Okay. Well, then I'll do my deer stories then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've only gone out a handful of times, like maybe even like 5-6 times, which usually I've
Yourself,
double
you mean.
that. Yeah, by myself. And it's been a comedy of errors, I would say. So I've been getting out like 5 minutes too late. I've been pulling in and seeing guys at their trucks or leaving their trucks and in the field that are walking in the direction that I would be walking.
Oh, you're
in.
seeing like their headlamp.
Yeah, like a headlamp walking away. I'm just like, yep. So that's what happens when you got to drive 40 minutes to your spot and you just don't make it out in time. So I've been going to either the spot that I wanted to go was either open or I had to go to a backup spot. And so I went to the first time I went out, I saw 2 bucks together. It was probably like November 2nd. And I saw two little bucks together, and then I saw a mature buck come down, go into a thicket. He went into a bush, and even though I was in a stand, I never saw him pop back out again. And so I was down along the river.
It's so amazing how much they can sneak into stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're finally into thick stuff and you see them actually go into it, you realize.
You can only see them when they're moving. The second they stop, even if you're staring at them, it's like they just vanish.
And that's why you need to convince yourself that there could be 1,000 deer in front of you at any given time. Like you're like, they could be popping out at any time. You need to be on edge. And that's why I can sit. People are like, I don't know how I can sit in a stand that long. It's like, because I can trick myself to think that I'm like, oh, you must think about all kinds of stuff. I'm like, I'm thinking about where's movement. Yeah. I'm like, I'm focused on movement,
horizontal lines. And,
So that soft focus that you talk about, looking for the horizontal line and ear twitch. So didn't see much then. I saw that I've seen more mature bucks this year than ever before. I've gone out less than ever before.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. So I'm just taking what we teach and applying it.
It works, doesn't it?
And then it works. So it turns out we know what we're talking about. So good for us. So so I went and I looked at a travel corridor along the river. And I saw the 3 bucks that day. And then I went back to that spot and then I saw a doe move through the thick stuff that day. And then we went out and we actually, I should mention this too. We went out and I had a crossbow break on me too this year. So we went out and we pulled the crossbow back, put it next to the car for just to get stuff out of the car. And then all of a sudden I hear popping and crackling. I look down and I got like one video of the last piece breaking off. And it didn't happen all at once. It was like, almost like an Indiana Jones movie, like a rope bridge breaking, like it was like a pop, just like pop, 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 and then the right side of the crossbow caved in, and then I had to unarm it, so I had to take my pull up string for that I would pull the bow up with, and I ran that through the trigger guard. And then I tried to do the old Mythbusters where you can pull the trigger with a rope
from afar.
Yeah, to try to just get away because I didn't know.
There's a lot of energy in that thing.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's going to explode or what.
Especially since they're fiberglass shard. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to be away from it as far as I could. So I did that, and then I realized that you got to put a bolt in the thing to fire it off because of safety. So I put it in a safe direction towards the ground, kind of. It was like an uphill thing, so I knew if it hit, it's going to hopefully go into the ground. If it ricochets, it'll go into a field. So and I put it that way, and then I put a bolt in. I put my decocking bolt in, and then I did the same thing again, and then it fired off. And then so then that we couldn't go out that day. And then so this is where I started making this mistake that I've never made before, which was the next day I went out. And luckily I went back the next morning to go out by myself and got to my stand. And then I realized I didn't have my pull-up rope. And I'm like, I can't get up to my stand.
Because you had to use it for your...
Yeah. So then I'm like, where the hell did I put that thing? So then I'm like, well, I was looking around. I'm like, I could either hunt on the ground or go up. And I'm like, I really can only hunt the spot up in a tree. So I left all my stuff and I tailed it back to the car. And every step I take, it's getting lighter and lighter. And I'm just kicking myself more and more. I'm just like, son of a gun. So I went and... I remembered I never put the rope back in the car because it was all the excitement of firing off the bow.
Being safe and
I forgot I put the string down next to the parking lot and I went back. I'm like, and by the time I got back there, I remembered that and it was sitting in the same spot I had the night before. So luckily I got my string back. So I forgot that time. And then, so then after that, I was hunting that same spot over and over again. So then I decided to try something new. Went to another spot and got there, and this was after we went waterfowl hunting, which we'll talk about, I guess, in the waterfowl section. But I'd taken all my crap out of my bag to go waterfowl hunting. Went up to another spot, which was way farther away from the car than the other spot was, and I got to where I wanted to go, and then I realized I didn't have my rope again because I took it out of my bag to go waterfowl hunting. So 2 times this season I got into a tree I wanted to go up and I couldn't go up. And then that time I sat. What's that?
You need an extra rope, like on your.
I need an extra rope. You need an extra
Like,
everything.
you need to
Yeah.
just be like, Katie.
What I need is an extra bag. I need a waterfowl bag
That's
and
what I have.
a
It
deer
makes-
bag,
yep.
and don't mix them.
Yep.
And always double check before you flip and leave the house. But
It's hard at 3 a.m, though.
dude. Yeah. So then, and we actually went waterfowl hunting that day, and I was still in my camo, so I went home, ate lunch, and I'm like, it's a nice day out. And it's right, let's go deer hunt. So that afternoon, I went deer hunting, and then I sat on the edge of a field that evening, and I found a tree. I just took the top of my tree stand because it was all a scrub around, and it was all really cruddy trees anyway. Like you couldn't sit in a tree stand in any of these trees because it was all freshly grown up trees, and so I found a tree that I could at least fit my stand on that wouldn't wobble back and forth. Like it was very, very small. Like I would never climb up this tree, but I sat on it just with my top seat.
Yeah, just like right off the ground. Yeah.
So then I was sitting there, and like right around 4:30, like I think the sun set at 4:45. At 4:30, I look to my left, and I see a silhouette of a black body of a huge buck with just white. I couldn't see its body at all. It was just black silhouette and just white.
Just
and
antlers.
It walked in right where I would have been in a tree. And I'm like, darn it. And then I grunted twice, and I didn't know. And then I thought it'd walk its way down along to the outside.
Just follow that edge.
Just follow that edge down to my left, and I never saw it again. And then I walked out of there, and I kicked like 3 or 4 deer out of the field. They were just in a different spot of the field I was sitting on that I couldn't see because trees were in the way. And then my last time I went, I did an all-day sit last week for rut, and I saw, like, I mean, as I would have planned it. Brand new spot. All these spots I've sat. The first time I sat was when I saw mature bucks. After that second time or third time I sat, I either didn't see anything or I saw a doe.
Those mature ones, they pick up on it quick. I really think
Dude.
that. I mean, they don't get old by being stupid.
Yeah.
They have to survive somehow. Yeah.
And this one, I actually tried to go somewhere else. I pulled into a parking lot, and there was a car there already. And I'm like, all right, the past couple times I've seen cars and I've driven away and not even talked to anyone. I'm just going to give them their space.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, it's Tuesday morning. Like, this stinks. Like, I took off today. Like, can I see where this guy's even going? So I pull in. I'm like, hey, buddy, where are you going? It's this very old man. And he's just like, oh, I'm going to the end of this ridge. I'm just like, yeah, right to that bedding area there. And he's like, yep. And he's like, literally, he's like, that's
where you're going to be.
I'm like, that's where I was going to go. And he's like, I haven't been in there yet. And I told him, like, well, if you go all the way to the end of this ridge, at the end of this bedding area, there's a cow path of a deer trail. Like, this keep going to the end of this ridge. I'm like, there's a 200-foot cliff back there. Don't fall off of it, though. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, well, good luck. And he's like, yeah, sorry. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, bud.
Part of it.
I'm like, I'll go somewhere else. So then I went
First
somewhere
come,
else.
first serve.
And I've been 5 minutes late all season.
From again. Don't know what happened.
Yeah. I know. I should have went back to make sure his car was gone.
He says, bump it off the competition. Give it a run.
Yeah, keep going until you hear a splash. Dude, so I went to another spot, and then this spot, right at first light, I saw a very mature buck come down. He was working across, but I had one spot. It was in very thick cover, and it's what we call our buck nest, and I have one spot to my right that's open where a big trail could be. And instead of coming down that trail, he went down my left, and there was just branches and everything else. I have a video of that. I'll show you. I can throw that up easily, and you just see all the different twigs.
The snags.
And he came walking right down. He came to 13 yards away from me. And I mean, every time I think about him, he just gets bigger and bigger. I don't know how big he was, but he was big enough to shoot. And then he just went and walked away, and I never saw him again the rest of the day. Right after him, like within 15 minutes, I saw him, and then I saw Spike walk across and then go out into the river on an island. And then I saw even a bigger buck, like a cow with antlers on it, and it was 60 yards away. And going from my right to my left, I saw about 30-yard section of woods that he walked through with his nose to the ground. Never saw him again the rest of the day. I sat there from sunrise to sunset, and those were the only deer I saw all day. So that was my hunting season so far. So
you didn't see a deer after what, like 8:30?
After 8:30, didn't see nothing. And then I was trying to convince myself. I knew the theory of midday,
Yep.
stay awake. You'll be all right. We'll see what happens. And I've sat there in the evening before, and I've seen deer in the evening there too. So it was a good morning and evening spot. But I was kicking myself. I'm like, dang, I should have went back to that field where I saw that big buck in the evening.
Yeah.
It's good.
You're always second guessing. Yeah.
I know. There's
That's
somewhere.
hunting.
There's somewhere
there's
else.
somewhere.
They're not
there's
here.
Somewhere. Yeah.
So that's been my deer season so far.
But yeah, firearm season's coming up in a couple days. I know I have a public land tag. You do as well.
Yeah.
So should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. So what other type of hunting you all been up to, you weirdos?
Waterfowl time, it's we had our first big mentor. Well, not our first. You all did a mentor duck hunt, but we had our first mentor duck hunt down at Gander Hill Goose Club, which is in Pinckneyville, Illinois. Really good place for waterfowl down there. Obviously, there's a ton of habitat around. Really good spot. Only problem is it's only a good spot once the migration has actually kicked off. And wouldn't you know it, the duck season in the South Central Zone started on November 16th. Nobody told the ducks. They didn't get the memo, something. They weren't around. We had a pretty slow hunt. We, probably saw a little over a dozen ducks all day. There just was not a lot of ducks around. We had one duck worked perfectly, fairly early in the morning. Our guy we were hunting with called at him, and he was right on a string, just perfectly came in right to the blind. It was the perfect shot you could have ever wanted. And all three mentees got up and unloaded their guns, and we got 0 ducks. So that duck, he kind of, I think he took a pellet. He might have took a pellet, but we did not retrieve him, unfortunately, and that was our one opportunity. So the good news on that is that waterfowl, unlike things like pheasant and deer, these non-migratory, boring critters, there's always more ducks coming. And so, the season started off slow, but we know they're on their way. And if you look at your weather, don't look at weather in Illinois. That's not the important thing. Look at the wind in Illinois. Go to windfinder.com is my favorite wind app because it's going to show you what the wind's doing over the whole countryside. You can see you want arrows pointing from basically the prairie pothole region to us in Illinois, and that's what we have all this week. All this week, we've got favorable migration winds. We're coupling that with, for the first time, really for an extended period of time, South Dakota, North Dakota, getting down into the low 20s. So a lot of these shallow water marshes, a lot of these water sources that the ducks are using are going to start freezing up this week, about Tuesday, Wednesday, and that's going to really start encouraging these ducks to move. So some ducks are moving. I know folks in northern Illinois getting into a few, but down there in the South Central and in the South Zone, it's not even season yet. Got to go all the way almost to December. It's the end of November when the season opens down there. That's probably going to be better timing this year because everything's a little bit behind, but they are coming. And one good thing about the migration being delayed is that when it does kick off, it could get absolutely nuts for a while. And then, if we don't get bad enough weather to push them out, we could have good hunting for a while. So that's what we're going to hope for. Watch your weather, but it definitely looks like this week it's going to turn around for waterfowl hunters in the Midwest, and things are hopefully going to get hot and heavy towards the end of the week. So be watching for that.
Looking forward to it. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing we encountered. What was it, November 9th? Was a mentor duck hunt that we had here in central Illinois at a piece of public land, and it was a fun day. Yeah. We didn't see a ton of activity. The birds, they're just, like Curtis said, they're just not here. I mean, we had a couple groups fly sky high, and in the area we were hunting at, it's probably pretty important to kind of describe what it's like, just to kind of illustrate the story. But we're right next to a big lake. And so a lot of times those ducks are out in that lake. That's where they're roosting. That's where they're sleeping at night. And then they fly away. They go to hit the ag fields. They hit the food. Now, the place we're hunting is definitely, there's not a ton of food there. There certainly is some food, but I would wager a guess all the ducks are going way over you, hitting a cornfield, and then we hope that they come back and loaf in this area. So as they come back in mid-morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock, you normally see a little bit of activity as those birds just come in, rest on that open water, loaf a little bit. And so we really didn't have a ton of activity, at first flight. We saw some groups leaving the lake sky high in the stratosphere. We called it a few of them. They didn't even give it a look. So I kind of put my calls away for a little bit in the morning. Heard a couple wood ducks buzzing at first light, but never really got eyes on them. But the coolest part of the hunt was we got some hooded mergansers that kind of came and sat on the water. They were probably 120 yards away, 150. They were pretty far.
Dead straight in front of us. You can see them through the grasses, and there was a clearing that you could see them playing in or playing in. But they were running back and forth.
Yeah, they'd hop up on the land on the levee a little bit, come down. So we got to watch those with the mentor or the mentees for quite a bit. I cooked a nice breakfast, cooked some bacon and eggs in the blind. So we made a good day of it, but unfortunately, like Curtis experience down south. The ducks just aren't here yet in good numbers.
Heard a ton of shooting on private. There's
And
probably a
I
field.
think it was those hitting those birds as they're leaving the lake, going to feed, and
Yep. I mean, it sounded like a war zone for some parts of that.
especially for the first like 30 minutes or so. It died pretty quick.
It did.
But,
They had a couple
So my
fires.
guess is those were probably hunting, feeding. Yeah, leaving the lake, going to feed, setting up on those fields,
Yeah, if you have good habitat, it doesn't take many ducks to make a good hunt. You know, if you've got the best habitat around, all the ducks that are there are probably going to be on you. One cool thing that we saw in our hunt, it wasn't waterfowl related, but we had a great horned owl calling, and about 100 crows were not happy. I was calling in the daytime, and so there was about a 30 to 45 minute battle.
were they mobbing it?
Oh yeah, 100.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Mobbing this great horned owl out in front of us, so that was definitely cool. And you know, even though we didn't get any ducks, we did get to experience waterfowl hunting at a private duck club, which, let me tell you, you want to talk about gentleman's hunt. I'm used to hunting public land, right? So that means strapping all your decoys, everything you need to your back, and potentially walking miles out into the marsh, which I've done dozens and dozens of times. This hunt, I think we might have took like 13 steps from the truck.
I love that.
So anyway, this was the epitome of gentleman's hunt. Really nice, comfortable blind. Of course, it was super warm. We weren't going to be cold anyway, but even if it was 25 degree with blowing, we were in a nice warm blind. We were really hidden. We didn't even need camo. So even though we didn't have birds, the mentees did get to see kind of what duck hunting can look like and see how it's different than deer hunting. Because everybody that was with me is primarily deer hunting. A couple of them were going deer hunting right after that. And they really couldn't get over the fact that they could just sit there and be talking with their buddies, but they're hunting at the same time. Because they're so used to, like you said, Jason, I mean, it's 10, 12 hours of sitting in your stand or your blind and being ever vigilant to every piece of movement, being quiet, being still. I mean, you don't even want to do this ever, you know, like the whole time you're sitting there. And duck hunting's the complete opposite of that. We're sitting there talking, you know, our guide Jaden showing us pictures from his recent trip to North Dakota where they absolutely slaughtered the ducks. I was like, so that's where we should have been hunting. Further drive, but yeah, everybody was just astounded that we could be doing all that and still hunting at the same time. And we were doing all that when we did get the one shot. So even though it wasn't a successful hunt, it was successful in the fact that they start thinking like, oh, I could do this. I could get a couple guys together and we could go hunting. And I mean, whatever. If we get a duck or two, that's the icing on the cake, but you get to sit around hunting and talk to your buddies for a morning. That's a good time, right?
And there's normally, like you said, we saw something. There's always, even if there's not ducks, you're just in a unique habitat that there's not a ton of in this state, and so you're usually gonna. I don't think I've ever had a duck hunt where I haven't seen something cool.
We saw Cooper's hawk.
We saw a Cooper's hawk,
dive bomb,
a northern harrier flying around. Those hooded mergansers there's always something.
Yeah, we thought that hawk was going to get a bird.
He was trying.
There's one of those flocks of
starlings.
Yeah, just like 100 starlings in a tree, and he was just kind of diving around trying to see if he could pick one off. It was really cool to watch. Cool.
The marsh is the magnet for life, so definitely, for anybody that likes to see the world doing natural things like hanging out in a marsh, that's a really fun place to be because there's always something going on. Mink running around doing their thing. I mean, a lot of cool critters at the marsh.
Mm-hmm. There's a fantastic scene in a movie that no one's seen. So let me reference it.
Deep reference.
Yeah. It's I Heart Huckabees.
Never even heard of it.
It's Mark Wahlberg.
Seen that.
Mark Wahlberg's in it. It's in the early 2000s. Go check it out. I highly recommend it. It's about existentialism. But at one point, they're sitting around a dinner table, and they're talking to a family, and it's like two hippies talking to a family, and they're like, "Have you ever been in a meadow at sunset?" And they're like, "What happens at a meadow at sunset?" And he's like, "Everything happens at a meadow at sunset." And their father's like, "Nothing happens at a meadow at sunset." And they're like, "No, everything happens." So just the idea that you could see so much off the couch.
Yep.
So yeah.
I like it.
Wes Anderson, right?
I don't know if it was Wes Anderson or not, but Jonah Hill. I think it's Jonah Hill's very first appearances in that scene in a movie.
No kidding.
He's a child.
My goodness.
Yeah, so check out this. You can also just Google that scene, Jonah Hill, I Heart Huckabee's dinner scene, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
It's a good movie.
I like it.
Lauren, you gotten out? Have you done some upland and at least tag along with some folks and gone rabbit hunting and things?
Yeah, so I found my dog he does better with rabbits when he has to work by himself. I went and was helping a friend look for a deer, which we did not find, unfortunately. But the good news is, my dog he's starting to get it with rabbit hunting. Because when he hunts with the beagles, he's lazy. Like, he knows that they're going to flush him out. So he'll just wait at the trailhead, and then kind of rotate depending where they are. And then he'll go after it. So it was nice to see him actually working. And he's starting to give voice now. And actually you can kind of hear him. It's exciting. So that was good.
How old is he now?
He will be a year tomorrow. No, today.
Okay. Oh, hey. Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah. That explains why he's so full of energy. Yeah. He's just looking at me from under the table like, what?
You talking about me?
Yeah. What are we doing? But yeah, so that was cool. We're getting out again tomorrow, I think. So he's starting to get it. And then I've been hanging out with the bird dog crew with overall retriever training and some of their upland challenges and different things they've been doing. They've been kind enough.
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah. They've been kind enough to let me kind of tag along, and get some pretty cool photographs of birds, like dogs flushing birds or doing. It's been very cool to see. They're a very nice community, so I definitely recommend checking it out. Or if you've got a flusher and a pointer, and you want to kind of see, get them, see how they're doing, see how they kind of stack up. Mm-hmm. Matt does a lot of these challenges, and I think he has one coming up in December as well. So something to do.
What is that? Is that like a field trial, or where are they doing?
It's just, I think, on one of his leases. It's just, a field, you rock up, you pay for the number of birds you're going to do, and you throw $20 in the pot. The winner of whichever category gets the pot. And you just kind of go out and they time it. And so it's pretty cool. Lots of different dogs. It's fun.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Freddie, one of our ambassadors, he's usually around. So Kane County Pheasants guys are usually around. But I also went up to Lake County Pheasants Forever, had a family pheasant hunt. They had one back in October as well, but I did one last weekend with my husband. Got my first rooster, so that was exciting.
Hey!
Yeah, I've currently got his tail feathers drying with some borax in my basement, so it's not like the prettiest tail feathers ever because he was rolling around my game bag, but
sure.
happy with it.
Hey, it's your first. Yeah.
Exactly. I'll take it. And I was
you can use steam to help straighten out some of the feathers if they're crinkled or whatever. You can get like a teapot or something and kind of steam them.
Yeah.
Or an iron.
Right now I have them gently pinned to a cardboard to kind of help it out. But they're gorgeous. I can see upland hunting is a lot of fun, but also I can see why people have been so invested in pheasants for so long. When you actually look at them, they're very cool.
And they're very tasty. Very tasty.
Yes. I think I'm going to be making pheasant mole. And Freddie was kind enough this weekend to give us a couple more because he's swimming in pheasant right now. So he's got a good dog. So
yeah.
And I got to watch her and another pointer work together, and that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. With the sunlight and just watching them go after these quail, it was
and especially when you have two dogs that know how to work off each other. That's what I find really and I've even been on hunts where the dog hasn't been trained to do that, but it's they just start picking up on what that first dog is doing, and they just start working as this tandem pair. Mm-hmm. And it is by far one of the coolest things you ever see. Is just, I don't even want to try to describe it because it won't do it justice.
I saw that for a second at our ambassador hunt last year.
Yeah,
and it was two dogs. I don't know if.
It may have been one of Freddie's dogs. Honestly.
It was Freddie and
was it Mike Garcia?
Mike, Mike. It was Freddie and Mike's dogs. I don't know if they hunt. I mean, they might hunt often together or not. I'm not sure if they get out a lot or not. But they did that.
Yeah, they start working.
They kind of back each other up.
Yeah,
and
when one goes on a point, the other one just okay.
Yeah.
That's your bird. I'm not going to go in there and ruin it. It may go on point too, but it knows to stay back.
Yeah,
and they'll kind of work to hold that bird there.
Yeah, it's a cattle dog.
It's so cool. Yeah,
and with the two pointers too, to see them back each other on point, hey,
yeah,
they're both pointing. There's definitely something in there. So it was very cool. We may be having a point or in our future. We'll see.
There's worse financial decisions out there.
Yeah,
I won't lie.
I don't know if I've got the energy for like hound and like those are two very different.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Although I will say the overall retriever guys, like some of the guys who come to that are a little bit obsessed because I brought Arnold with me last time just to bring him. He wasn't running birds or anything, but they're kind of obsessed with the idea of him going after a pheasant. So who knows? Maybe he'll become a rabbit and a bird dog. They were funny though. They did end up flushing a rabbit. And they're like, "Where's that basset hound? Like, where's he at?
Bring it out."
He's asleep in the car is where he's at. But
yeah,
we're still working on the gunshots. That's our big hang up at the moment. But
just the sound.
Yeah, and he's doing a lot better, but it's still. But hey, I've got a year-old hound puppy that comes back for the most part when I call, so I'll take it.
I find recall to be harder than gun shyness.
Yeah. Mm. I think gun shyness is just hard because it's, even with the Beagle Club and stuff, finding places to be able to practice. Yep. And I think with some of the smaller things, he seems to do okay with shotguns when they're further away, but the ported shotguns, my husband was noticing those in particular he does not like.
Interesting.
So I don't know if the sound, if it's just different or how it is. So, but we've been doing.
May do something to that high end frequency too that we can't hear, but it may have a weird. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not into it, but I'm hoping hanging out, practicing.
He'll get there.
Who I do the Beagle stuff with, he's got a litter of puppies coming up. So in the next few weeks, I think he's going to start working with them. So they're so funny to watch. They are tiny and they are ferocious little dogs, but they're pretty sweet. So
that's cool.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'm trying to think. I think that's all. I have a pheasant hunt coming up in December. We've got a couple mentored hunts coming up. We've got squirrels. We've got.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy few weeks here, which is good. This is the time of year we should. Yeah, I love it.
And then starting with going out with rabbits. My rabbit hunting mentor is determined to get a deer. So once he gets his deer,
then he'll transition to rabbits.
Yeah, we've been running the dogs, but we go to a public land to actually hunt them. Which mine will be staying home for that because I don't quite trust him yet. I'm confident he'll come back, but because he's very much a mama's boy. But I'm still a little paranoid about losing my dog. So
yep.
And I haven't made that collar investment yet because that is
there. It is an investment.
Yeah, those are expensive. So
yep.
But yeah, so that's what I've been up to mostly.
Nice.
Uplandy type stuff.
I tell you what, I'm just excited for firearm season. I've been itching and burning, knowing I had that in my pocket. It's kind of hard at times to convince myself to go archery hunt in early October.
Yeah.
Especially because the site I hunt is part of that reduced doe. So you can't shoot an antlerless deer the whole month of October. Mm-hmm. So I went 2 or 3 times and I saw some bucks off in the distance, but every deer that was within range was an antlerless deer that I couldn't legally shoot. So for me, it was very hard to get myself to continue motivation to go out there.
Yeah.
But now that I have a firearm tag in my pocket, I'm very excited.
I swear they know.
The weather looks good.
They get their copy. They
know.
They're like, all right.
Yeah.
It says here, we're in this county, right? We're good for now. We gotta make ourselves scarce. Yeah, my husband has a firearm tag for McHenry County.
Nice.
But we're at a wedding this weekend, so he doesn't get to use it this weekend.
So that'll be a second season thing. Yep.
But I'm like, you got one in the freezer. You're fine. It's a good start. I'm like, we need to get a turkey. That's our next thing. And I mean, I was out running the dogs and literally looked down the path and I'm like, how'd the dogs get down there so fast? And no, it's just a turkey popping out of the woods.
Was it dogs?
No, he just hello, and just continued down the trail. So I'm like, all right, my husband did go turkey hunting a couple weeks ago and had, he grabbed the wrong broadheads off the shelf. He grabbed the 225s maybe. He grabbed the wrong, they're too heavy basically compared to whatever.
The wrong size. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's usually a pretty good shot. So he's like, yeah, I missed with both my bolts. And I was like, really? That's kind of surprising to me. But he's been doing practice and he's like, yeah, I think they're too heavy because he tried his crossbow again with the ones he got his deer with. And he's like, yeah, it was perfect for that. But he's like, man, I should have just walked right up to those turkeys. They were turkeys because they're used to the dogs and stuff. So they're like, all right, whatever. We'll just scuttle out of the way. Although I've heard something, they're more like, oh God, Jacob's coming to get us, and running to hide. When they see people now, they're a little freaked out by. But he's like, I fired. He's like, I fired. He's like, they literally were just like, what's that? So yeah, he's like, I could have just bopped one with a stick if I, like he's like, I was yeah. So we're learning a lot this year.
Good. Mm-hmm. That's half the battle. I'm still learning. Every time I go out, I learn something.
Yep. And chipping
nature of the beast.
Chipping away at Trapper Ed as well. So working on that. Wisconsin and Illinois. So it's a lot. It's a lot. But
I like it. Well, cool. Well, again, good luck to everybody who gets out in the next week or two. We'll be back with another podcast probably right after Thanksgiving holiday. But if you have any success out there, we love hearing stories, seeing pictures. So feel free to reach out to us, either email, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, however you want to find us. And we love talking hunting and
tag us and stuff.
Yeah,
check it out.
love
questions.
Stories. Awesome. Well, you want to wrap us out, Jason, and take her home?
Hey, man, that sounds good to me.
I like it.
See you all next time.
All right, we'll see you all next week.